rise to the occasion, the Paladin questline. So the first part of the questline is play 3 different 1-cost cards. Reward is Equip a Light's Justice. Then we have play 3 different 1-cost cards, upgrade your hero power. So that makes your hero power, the Baku hero power, 2 mana, make 2 recruits. And then for the last part of the questline, we have play 3 different 1-cost cards. So all of the questline portions are the same. And your reward is Lightborn Cariel, who is a 5 mana 7/7 with Battlecry. For the rest of the game, your Silverhand recruits have +2/+2. So the late game payoff of this card is that your hero power is 2 mana to summon 2 3/3s, which is pretty nutty. That's like one of the craziest hero powers that has been available in Standard that I can think of at least. So really, really powerful. And of course, Lightborn Cariel also buffs things like Stand Against Darkness, Day at the Fair, all that kind of stuff as well. So very powerful. And if you do the math, it actually curves out perfectly. You play Rise to the Occasion on turn 1, and then 2 + 3 + 4 is 9 mana, and that's exactly how many different 1-cost cards you need to play. So by turn 4, you complete the quest, turn 5, you play Cariel, and then you can start hero powering. And there are 2 cards in particular that make this a lot more doable. There's First Day at School, or what is it? First Day of School. And First Day of School is pretty much always going to be 3 different 1-cost cards, unless you just happen to hit 2 of the same thing off First Day of School. And there's also Pinflinger. Pinflinger is pretty good because a lot of the 1-cost cards you're going to be playing are probably going to be secrets. So yeah, I think it's like probably pretty easy to just curve out with this card. And you're dumping a lot into it, but I think you're probably not really falling too far behind on board because you're just playing so much stuff in the early turns. You are just dumping your hand, but then you get the insane hero power. You also have the 5 mana 7/7, and actually one of your 1-drops can be Tour Guide. So on the turn where you play Cariel, you can also just get 2 3/3s. So like that's a pretty insane curve, I would say. Now, unlike some of the other quest lines, the rewards along the way don't really help you finish the quest. The first one gives you a Light's Justice, which is like kind of garbage, but I guess particularly if you're using Pinflinger to finish the quest line, an extra 1 damage ping is pretty good. But then the second part of it, you upgrade your hero power, but you're probably just never using that until you fully finish it, so it's like a little bit slow, I would say. But I think you can actually, the more I think about it, the more I think that you can really just keep up in the early turns and then start having a really powerful late game hero power. I think the biggest question is, like, is that late game hero power going to be enough? And that's probably going to depend a little bit on the meta. But it does seem like a Priest or Warlock probably isn't going to care that much about a couple 3/3s every turn. I guess Druid can always Guardian Animals to, like, start cleaving them and stuff. Death Rattle Demon Hunter is going to have more of a board that you can deal with in the early game. I don't know, maybe it's actually not that powerful of a reward. It is a very insane tempo spike right on turn 5, especially if you have the Tour Guide, or if you have the Tour Guide, really. But it does seem like it might be like a too little too late kind of situation. But I think Lothraxion is still in Standard, right? Yeah, we do still have Lothraxion, so if you're also giving those 3/3s Divine Shield, that's really insane. Like I said, we do have Day at the Fair. We do, I believe, have Stand Against Darkness. Yeah, we do have Stand Against Darkness. So maybe that kind of stuff is enough to just keep the hero power relevant and keep the Cariel's effect relevant. I don't know. It's pretty hard to say without seeing how the meta's going. But once you get things set up, which again can be as early as turn 5, it is probably the most powerful hero power that's been seen in Standard. Next we have Jace Darkweaver, a Demon Hunter legendary. 8 mana 7/5 with Battlecry. Cast all fell spells you've played this game. Targets enemies if possible. So this is obviously a powerful effect. Compare it to like Shudderwalk or Zul'jin, both of which were very good. Even Tess Greymane, which she was a good card, just the deck she was in sucked. But this sort of effect is certainly powerful. And when we look at the fell spells that Demon Hunter currently has access to, we have board clears with Chaos Nova, Immolation Aura. We have damage with Fury, Chaos Strike, Metamorphosis. We have healing with Eye Beam and Fell Scream Blast. So this card does like a lot of stuff that you want it to do. But it is still kind of a matter of, like, is that better than other stuff you could be doing as Demon Hunter? Like, if you want this to do damage, you just play Illidari Inquisitor, right? And then you don't have to worry about having played fell spells. And, like, how many decks, like, what deck are you playing this in, like, actually wants to be playing Chaos Nova? The Eye Beam is pretty good. But in general, I think with the current set of fell spells, even if this is powerful, Demon Hunter would probably rather just be playing some of the cards they already have access to. Even like some of the Soul Fragment stuff is probably going to be more consistent damage plus healing than Jace. But we've only seen 1 or 2 Demon Hunter cards for this set. So if there are like a couple really powerful fell spells, then I could see this card really impressing me. But with the current card pool, I think it looks a little bit underwhelming. Next we have Bolner Hammerbeak for Shaman. It's a legendary. 2 mana 1/4. After you play a Battlecry minion, repeat the first Battlecry played this turn. So there have been some pretty nutty setups people have found with this card. There's one that I'm not entirely sure if this even works, but you play Hammerbeak, and then you play, there's a new neutral card that discovers a spell that didn't start in your deck, and you just fill your deck with like all the spells except Lightning Bloom plus Lightning Bolt. So then every Battlecry you play gives Lightning Bolt or Lightning Bloom, and then you play Pinflinger. So you just get like infinite blooms and infinite bolts, and you can kill your opponent on like turn 3 with that setup or something. Probably not very practical, but in theory it's pretty scary. Maybe something more reliable is Bolner with Yashiraj. You Bolner Lightning Bloom Yashiraj. The Yashiraj gives Circus Medic and Dunk Tank. And then every time you play a Circus Medic, it sets off the Yashiraj and gives you another Circus Medic plus Dunk Tank. So you have infinite damage in the late game with that setup. And that's pretty easy to do. It's a 3-card OTK that just needs you to have played 2 specific cards earlier in the game. And all of the cards involved are just good cards. So like that could actually be a pretty reliable finisher for some sort of late game Shaman deck. But this card might not need that much to be good. I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly, but I think the first Battlecry you play in the turn, like, triggers Bolner to repeat itself. Because after you've played the Battlecry minion, then it should recognize that a Battlecry minion was played earlier in the turn, right? So in that sense, this is just 2 mana Bran Bronzebeard, which obviously just makes it very good. I'm pretty sure that's how this works. I don't know if it necessarily finds a home in any of the existing Shaman decks. Like, Elemental Shaman does have a lot of Battlecries, but they're not really the kind of Battlecries that benefit from this. And this isn't the sort of effect where the thing like keeps hitting the same target. So like if you copy Lilypad Lurker, then Lilypad Lurker could just hex this minion. That would be bad. Or Gyroworm could like shoot itself. Something like that. So I don't really know like what Battlecries that deck would be using to abuse this. Again, I don't really know what like a Doomhammer Shaman would be using to abuse this. So it does need to find a home. And speaking of Doomhammer Shaman, like, I'm not convinced necessarily that the Yashiraj setup is going to be the best finisher for Shaman. Like, maybe you'd rather just play a Doomhammer thing. You can play a couple Rockbiters and Storm Strikes and just kill your opponent like that. We did see the new Overdraft that does damage equal to your overloaded mana crystals and unlocks them. Like, maybe that sort of thing is just a better finisher than Bolner Hammerbeak. But it does overall seem like a good card. It could fit in multiple archetypes. It could be the centerpiece of the deck that it's in. Could just be a support card. It's just a good card. It probably finds a home somewhere. Depends a lot on what the best Shaman deck is going to be, but I can see this sneaking its way into pretty much any Shaman deck. Next we have Counterfeit Blade, a rogue weapon. 4 mana 4/2 battle cry. Gain a random friendly death rattle that triggered this game. So we've seen like ways to abuse past death rattles in the past. And this is on a 4 mana 4/2 weapon, so 4 mana 4/2 weapon is pretty good. But I do think this card is a little bit awkward. This has battle cry, gain a death rattle. So on the turn that you play this, you need the death rattle minion to have already died, and you're not getting the effect of this card until the following turn, right? So it's like pretty slow and pretty awkward. One of the things about Necrium Blade is that you could like set it up and then play your death rattle minion and immediately trigger its death rattle. But with this, it's like in the complete opposite order, which makes it so much more awkward. And if you're just playing this on curve, like what are you copying? The best things you can hit are like, I don't know, Loot Hoarder and Ectoplasm. Like that's pretty mediocre. And if you're saving this for late game to copy like Cursed Vagrant, is that the big 7 mana 7/5 thing? Like, yeah, that's pretty powerful. But I don't know, that's like super, super slow, right? So I don't know. I don't really see anything that makes me too excited with this card. I mean, I'm sure Rogue will probably get some sort of nutty death rattle thing in this set, but it's hard for me to imagine a nutty death rattle thing that makes me actually want to play this card. And like, just if I'm playing a weapon in Rogue, I feel like I'd rather just play the Shank or the self-sharpening sword or something. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things working against this card. But, I mean, it is always something that, depending on, like, with the right death rattle being printed, then, like, suddenly this card could be insane, right? Another weapon, this one's for Paladin. The Lightbringer's Hammer. 3 mana 3/2 with lifesteal, can't attack heroes. So this card seems like pretty good. Fiery War Axe with a keyword slapped on it. Not being able to attack heroes is kind of a big downside for a weapon though. Face is the place a lot of times when you have the weapon. And like because of that, because it can't attack heroes, it also doesn't really function as a healing card like a lot of weapons do, or like a lot of lifesteal cards do rather. Because if you're trying to like heal out of range of your opponent's damage, this does actually have to go into a minion. So because it's going into a minion, you're almost always taking damage to heal. So most of the time you're probably going to break even or have like a minor health swing. So it's a little bit awkward in that regard. But I think the bigger issue is that Paladin just has better weapons. As a 3 mana 3/2, they have the Underlight Angling Rod. They can scale up and play True Silver, or even just mana, or even just weapons that aren't at the same mana slot, like Sword of the Fallen and Hammer of the Naru, Judgment of Justice. There's like so many different weapons that Paladin has access to, and it's just kind of hard for me to imagine this being the best one you could play. There's even the new Paladin weapon that's like 1 mana when something loses a Divine Shield, buff your hand. I think the card is fine. This would probably be a lot better if it was like a priest weapon or something where there's no competition. But as a Paladin weapon, I think it's a little bit unexciting. Next up we have Two-Faced Investor. Neutral minion, 3 mana 2/4. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of a card in your hand by 1, 50% chance to increase. So I think the text on this card is maybe not like super clear. I know I had to read it more than once. But the way it works is at the end of your turn, there's a 50% chance to reduce the cost of a card in your hand or a 50% chance to increase the cost of a card in your hand by 1. So the net outcome of this card is nothing, right? Half the time it makes it go up, half the time it makes it goes down. You average out at 0. And on an understated 3-drop, this card just seems like pretty bad, right? Now, from what I've seen, most people have been really shitting on this card, and I think that probably is justified, but I'll give it a slight defense. If you're playing a deck that just tends to have a lot of cards in your hand, and your restriction on playing those cards, or like your restriction is more mana rather than cards, then like if this misses and increases the cost of a card in your 8-card hand, you can just not play that card, you can just play your other cards. But if it happens to hit a discount, then suddenly, you know, you're able to like pump out some more value, more tempo earlier than you should be able to. So like depending on how your hand is, you can kind of ignore the downside, but abuse the upside in theory. But it's still only one card off the effect. It's just like you're playing an understated 3-drop to like maybe get a coin basically. So at the end of the day, I think the card is like very clearly pretty weak. Next we have Anetheron, a Warlock legendary. 6 mana 8/6 demon, costs 1 if your hand is full. I think this card is just pretty good. As Warlock, it's pretty easy to have a full hand on even like turn 3. I think you can pretty often just tap and then play this. I mean, that's pretty insane, right? And even if you're getting later in the game, I think it's still like pretty easy to play this card. It's just a 1 mana 8/6, right? It's also demon, so there's some like philosophy stuff you can do with it as well. But I don't think it really needs any sort of synergies. It's just like you play it like you play a Mountain Giant, right? And it's just a good card. And speaking of Mountain Giant, we have Dark Alley Pact, also a Warlock card. 4 mana Shadow spell. Summon a fiend with stats equal to your hand size. So you play this on turn 4, your hand is full, you get a 9/9. Or an 8/8 if your hand is not quite full. There you go, Mountain Giant. And it's actually a Mountain Giant that you can coin out and make it just like a 7/7 or whatever. So yeah, we know Mountain Giant was good in Warlock. This is a Warlock card. It's a good card. It also, being a shadow spell, has some synergy with Tamsin Roam in the late game, so you could like double Mountain Giant with it. It's just a good card. I don't think you really need to build your deck that much around these new Mountain Giants. Most Warlock decks can probably use them pretty well. But if you want to like lean into it and try to build a handlock deck, then you're probably going to be able to use these cards even better. They're just good. They're reprints of cards that were already good. Next up we have Oracle of Elune for Druid. 3 mana 2/4 minion. After you play a minion that costs 2 or less, summon a copy of it. So obviously this is like a pretty insane effect, a pretty dangerous effect. The scariest thing I've seen with this is Celestial Alignment. So you make all your minions cost 1, which is less than 2. So you play Oracle of Elune and you get a copy of any minion you play. That's like pretty nutty. But I'm not really sure like what you're actually copying that's powerful. You can copy like Lady Anaconda, but all your stuff already costs 0 anyway, so that doesn't really matter. Copy Auctioneer, but you're going to just be filling your hand. I don't know. I didn't really find anything that was super nutty with this. Maybe you just play it with things that naturally cost 2 or less. You can play it with like Razormane Battle Guard, and then your first taunt each turn costs 4 or less. That's like kind of good. But I don't know. Even with Celestial Alignment or without Celestial Alignment, I never really found the combo I was interested in with Oracle of Elune, or the card I was interested in with Oracle of Elune. And on its own, it is a 3 mana 2/4, which is pretty mediocre. I don't think you can really like play this on turn 3 and just hope it lives and then go off with it on the following turn. But I don't know, maybe Taunt Druid. You somehow get this to, you coin this out, and then you play 2 Razormane Battle Guards and then 2 0 mana Anoyatrons. Could be a thing. Or maybe there's just some big idiot with Celestial Alignment that I missed that turns this into an OTK. Or we've only seen about half the Druid cards. Maybe an upcoming Druid card is going to be nutty with this. But currently, I just don't really see it. But it only takes one insane card to combo with this for this to suddenly be like the strongest card in the set.